Let's now look at Article 15, which deals with dependent personal services. In many countries, it is also called as income from employment, right? But there's no difference principally between the two. What this means is that the services which an individual refers, why an individual? Because the word used here is personal. The services which an individual renders are dependent in terms of what to be done, how to be done on someone else, right? Which is the case of employment. And that is why this is known as the Dependent Personal Services Clause. So how is this different vis-a-vis independent personal services? Now let's look at an example to understand what's the difference between these two articles. Suppose there's a person, an individual, Mr. X. For the period 1st April 2014 until 30th September 2015, X was into employment of a foreign company. Thereafter, he changed his employment from 1st of October 2015 until 31st of March 2016, wherein he was rendering the employment to an Indian company, which in turn was giving him some remuneration. So the issues which come up in something like this could be, and maybe I'll just remove this for the time being, where should this income be taxed? Second is, where should the income for the period which is being considered or rendered in India, right? The period which is used for rendering services into India, where should the remuneration for that be taxed? And let's look at another case of Mr. Y. He's also providing some independent personal services to the Indian company, right? So the Indian company have two people, Mr. X and Mr. Y. X is rendering services for remuneration, Y is providing independent personal services. In such a case, like I said, the first question is, where should the remuneration for this period be taxable? Wherein the services were rendered by X to the foreign company. Then the services were rendered in India for an Indian company. And third, Mr. Y provided independent personal services to Indian company. Now there are two things which are relevant here. First is, which article should these be taxed in? Independent personal services rendered by Y will be taxable under Article 14. Whereas the services rendered by X, since both of them constitute employment, they will be taxable under Article 15. The criteria for the taxability of income from employment or dependent personal services is where were the services rendered, right? In the first case, since the services were rendered outside India, India will not have a right to tax such remuneration, even if by virtue of the fact that this X may become a resident of India. Similarly, for the period for which the services are rendered in India would normally be taxable in India, right? And this is what is enshrined in Article 15. Of course, there are changes, there are minor variations. This is subject to conditions. And that is what we are going to look at for the purpose of our discussion in this particular article.